And I think we identified pretty early on that Marcus was different. He had some challenges that was made possible partly by having a twin sister who was doing things that he was not.
Most people think of autism in our society. They think of somebody who has social challenges and has a hard time communicating in social situations, has repetitive behaviors, and has sensory issues, but who are still able to go to a normal school with proper resources and supports, and who are still able to lead, quote, normal lives.
Saying it a different way is they have a disproportionate share of voice for autism.
Yes.
And the reality is, it's great that they were able to live a, quote, normal life. They are far and away the minority of those who are diagnosed with autism, and there's far more people who can't speak for themselves.
Those who are not talked about enough in our society are those who can't attend a normal school and have to seek out residential living, are usually partially or fully nonverbal.
So it was around the time when he was 12 months of age, we saw an episode on the Today Show that showed a little boy about 3 years old who was doing a lot of things that Marcus was doing. And it was one of the first episodes that highlighted autism. From there, we took our concerns to our local pediatrician and asked our pediatrician, could Marcus have autism? Within a few minutes of walking into the appointment, said, Marcus has autism. I just don't know where he is on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And that took us down a long assessment process with some organizations affiliated with Stanford University, Children's Hospital, and getting that initial diagnosis. So he was diagnosed at around 14 months of age, which is very early for a diagnosis like that.
Particularly at that time.
Yeah. And within 4 months, we had him in an early intervention program.
Then and still now, everything that you will read or people will tell you is early intervention is key, and if you get in early, they can have a, quote, normal outcome, normal trajectory, and that is certainly true for some kids, but it was not true for Marcus, and it's definitely not true for all kids either. So
he never really developed speech. He never really pointed at things. He never really mimicked, things that we did, like smiling.
And they were asking about headbanging, and again, top hospital in the country, if not the world, and one of the doctor's response was, well, that's what they do, meaning autistic kids, they just harm themselves.
So the early diagnosis was helpful in getting him into early intervention, and we thought that if we did everything possible and dedicated our full-time focus on doing all of that, that by the time he was 5, he would be speaking. Yeah. He would be a more cognitively typical toddler or young boy, and we kept waiting.
I would say, so we identified pretty early on that Marcus was going to need support all his life. Massachusetts is probably the best state in the nation for support with all kinds of disabilities. We did move largely because of Marcus. There were some other reasons too. Um, but I'd say within a year of being here in Massachusetts, it was clear, Marcus was having behavior, whether it was biting furniture, electrical cords.
There are a multitude of reasons why many children with autism live in residential housing. Although it is a very difficult decision to make for all of these parents, they usually opt to put their children in these residential housing programs because even if they weren't working full-time, they would not be able to provide the level of care and quality of care that their child needs.
So Dylan lived home with his family, so mom, dad, and Emma, the four of us, till he was 21.
Dylan, which one is it?
It's the one with the joker.
Is it the goblin one?
Yeah, it's the goblin one.
You haven't seen that one in like so long.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think this one is? You think this is underwear?
No, this.
What is it?
Oh my word! Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I love you. Happy
Oh.
birthday.
Often have said, use this as like he was the sun and we were the planets that revolved around him.
Our world, Marcus's world, Madeline's world, eventually your world, became very narrow because you were just limited in what you could do. And
We had noticed over time that they were spending more and more time in their rooms and less time engaged with the family because they recognized so much time, effort, and energy had to be spent on managing Marcus.
Yeah.
And that wasn't fair to them either. We needed, it was also very stressful on our marriage. And we realized that we needed to make a big change and ultimately move Marcus into residential if we wanted to keep our family together.
And it was clear that, I would say our family was definitely in crisis. I mean, I don't know what else you would call it, probably more extreme than that, but it was clear that, although it was heartbreaking and still is, it was the best thing for everyone that he not live with us. So
I want to say as a mom, as a parent, I tried really hard to create a life for Emma, who's 4 years younger, that was as typical, normal, whatever you want to call it, as possible. But we all know, no matter what age you are and where you live in your family dynamic, you know when things are tense. So he lived a pretty great life. Not so much for all of us, and not that we didn't love Dylan and there weren't many times of happiness and joy, but not a lot. There was a lot of planning that went into creating that life. So I knew that wasn't sustainable. So I knew really early on that we had to look for some other place for Dylan to live. Yeah.
So this could be your room, bud.
it's a big impact on every aspect of a family, an individual, and it still is. I mean,
So Madeline, this is your brother's room. They're still waiting for his mattress. There's your sis. That's a bathroom, and there's a door and a workstation, and there's mommy. And that's one of his roommate's bed, and the other roommate's bed. There's a couple closets. So you'll get to come visit soon and see we made it all just like home for him.
About 6 months in, a lot of little things happened. They called me and said, we can't program for Dylan anymore. And I said, well, I don't know what that means. And they said, well, we can't program for his type of autism. Dylan came home. He was highly dysregulated from those 6 months of just difficult for him. So highly dysregulated at home, a lot of outbursts. I had to quit work. I'm helping Emma, helping Dylan. Those 60 days turned into 18 months because we couldn't find any other housing. During that time, there was a lot of outbursts for Dylan. He was highly dysregulated, highly unhappy, severely depressed. I'd go see him 2 or 3 times a week, and when I drop him off, even if it was like 2 p.m, he'd go to sleep under the covers. Like he just didn't want to be there.
Abuse and neglect are much more prevalent than we think in these systems.
Abuse and neglect is something that, as a parent, you always think about and you always fear. And although in a lot of cases there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And it's horrible to know that we've had to leave him there in that setting, knowing that something might be going on.
Yep.
Anderson Center for Autism in Dutchess County aired exclusively on Fox 5, sending shockwaves through the disability community and alerting those who do not have a personal connection to the cause. The anger, outrage, and disgust has been palpable, and in its wake, the question is being asked, where is the assistance for the most vulnerable among us?
Is accused of breaking a teenage student's arm in an incident that was allegedly caught on video.
Allegedly shows Allison pushed the boy to the ground, face first, and jammed his left arm to the floor, causing an audible snapping noise.
I don't know what, a year in, he had a behavior outburst, and 2 pretty large men restrained him, physically restrained him. He fell backwards and hit his head on a cement floor, and he suffered a traumatic TBI, traumatic brain injury, closed head. He ended up in the ICU at Duke, unconscious for 9 days. Like he was having seizures, and this is a guy that was verbal and could do things, and he was just laying there.
Car. I don't know. Let me look at it. Oh yeah, car. Yep.
Car, okay.
You got it.
Let's see,
And
and,
we don't know that word as well, right there. Yeah.
okay. Dad, Mom, and Emma.
But if
Yeah.
somebody was abusing him, he can't speak up. He can't explain that, and and I've definitely tried many times. When you ask a group home manager or staff, they're like, I don't know how that happened. And as you know, the other side of the story is Dylan. He was in the shower once, taking a shower. He loves showers. And what I hear from the incident report is that the staff, which is fine, said, come on, Dylan, it's time to get out. Dylan didn't want to get out. Something ensued between the staff and Dylan slipped and he almost lost his eye on the water spigot. And the staff, the whole group home was very defensive about the staff, and it was all about Dylan. Well, Dylan should have listened.
But abuse and neglect definitely happen. We've heard from other parents about it happening. We've even heard stories of things that happened at some of Marcus's past group homes that we probably weren't supposed to know about.
I take issue sometimes with the word home. I'm not sure they're homes.
Not only is this systematic abuse bad enough, but the information is oftentimes not provided to parents. While some of this information is present in bits and pieces, if you go and file a public records request, the state of Massachusetts provides none of this information to parents when reviewing suitability of residencies, which is the first thing that a parent would probably want to know when putting their child into the hands of somebody else. When these individuals turn 21 or 22, depending on the state, all of the school-based services that these individuals have been receiving under the Federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which includes these residential housing programs, will be taken away. So this often leaves families scrambling to find suitable services, which there is a major lack of, especially after the COVID-19 epidemic. These wait lists for these programs have only grown longer and longer.
And then we just kept asking his school and our local Department of Developmental Services coordinator, which we weren't assigned until he was probably 21, maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
We kept asking, what should we be doing? Should we be visiting programs?
And so we were kind of like, all right, well, the groups home have been okay, so we're kind of trusting the process with the state. And as Sabrina said earlier, they're like, well, it really starts, once he turns 21. And so we kind of patiently waited, and then he turns 21, and like, well, it really kicks in when it's 6 months out from his birthday. And then at 6 months out it's going to be closer to 3 months out. And so it was this constant delay, and finally we're a month or two out, and they have nothing for him.
Unfortunately, it is astounding how many individuals go without these services that are essential for them. During the 2024 fiscal year, DDS identified 1,395 people who were eligible for the Turning 22 services. In 2024, 968 individuals received day and employment and transportation services, while 248 individuals received residential services. So this means that approximately 179 individuals of those that DDS identified did not receive any services that they needed. And this does not even account for the people that DDS does not identify.
So this would have been in October. It's like, how many people with similar abilities of Marcus have you placed in a group home this year? And their answer was 0, which really shocked us. And so we're still kind of relying on the state to find something. And they basically come back and say, yeah, in essence, they have no idea when they'll find something. And so had we not been moving forward with Branching Tree, I don't know what I would have done. Individuals' children, when they get prioritized, either priority 1 or priority 2. Priority 1 means once they turn 22, they're supposed to have a placement within 60 days. Marcus was priority 1. They were not going to have that. Priority 2 basically says they need services, but we have no timeline to place them. And there are thousands of people in the state with priority 2 who, whether they're 22 or 32 or 42, who've been waiting decades to get a house, and they never will.
What we don't want to do is get to a point where we have so many individuals that need housing and need a level of care that there's a return to institutions like that. And so we've got to come up with better options and solutions of how to house this growing population.
Dylan lives in a cul-de-sac in this lovely home from the outside, but he has never met his neighbors. His neighbors have never met him. 2 or 3 of the young men who live with Dylan who are non-speaking, I've never seen them leave the group home, never. 2 of them have no family, so they are appointed guardians. So there's much less advocacy for them. 2 of the young men who are non-verbal, non-speaking, have no means of communication, like no AAC device. I would say Dylan and most people who live in group homes now, and I'm generalizing, are seen as a task to complete and not a person to care for. The onus is on DDS now to look at innovative housing and say it's time for us to think outside the box. And how do we make a model like Branching Tree sustainable for other families, for a single mom of color living in Boston with a son who's 22 and has no opportunities for things like Branching Tree? How does DDS bring this model to that mom? You know, when you think about DDS, our Department of Developmental Services, which we're very lucky in the United States that we have this, so I really am appreciative. They have, and I'm going to say generally, a $3.2 billion budget, $3.2 billion. $2 billion of that goes to private group home providers. And the question I just have on the table is, why aren't they, looking at innovation? If we haven't innovated in 60 years, we need to do something about it. So Branching Tree is, I think I should have my spiel down because we talk about it so much, but it's a home. It's a home, you know, it's so simple to me. It's a home where people who don't have disabilities choose to live in a home with people who do. And for some people, they find that really odd. Like, why would you do that? But there are many, many people who would choose to live in a home with people who have differences. And the difference there is they're sharing life together.
With Branching Tree, we are starting, hopefully in the next month, with one house with 3 disabled young adults and 3 caregivers. The plan, though, is to truly make it a community, is to build 2 more houses that'll have a total of 9 young adults with disabilities and 9 caregivers, because that is kind of, to use a cliche a little bit, where the magic happens, that then you can get some of those interactions between houses.
Because he's going to be able to live with what I like to say is dignity, purpose, and belonging. It means being treated with respect.
And where did you put your money?
With my wallet. Yeah, I'm gonna sit.
Check it out.
I got my money.
Okay, Joni, we're gonna sit.
Respect, that their choices are honored.
Yeah.
Would you like any syrup?
Still no sense. Thank you.
I'll get that right now. It'll be about 5 minutes.
And purpose means they live meaningful lives, that they get to help create a day that matters to them, not to us. And if Dylan's day, what it means to him is to watch old Andy Griffith reruns, then that's what his day means. And belonging, more than anything to me, is that's really the big word for me, is feeling accepted, feeling known, feeling valued.
Good job, Dylan. Hi, Marcus. Hi, Marcus. Hi, bud.
5:30? You were there at 5:30? Are you exhausted?
Yeah.
Did you have the best week ever?
Yeah.
What do you think? That's your bed. Marcus. That's your bed. Go sit on it.
Because could we bring dignity, purpose, and belonging to 5 men's and women's lives versus being in a group home at the end of a cul-de-sac and they never leave the house? So that's what I'm thinking.
As of April 10th, DDS has granted approval of funding for Branching Tree program operations with additional supports. This is a huge step in the right direction towards more inclusive housing models. However, this is still a pilot program, and it's critical that it succeeds in order to secure future funding. Also, additional fundraising is still needed for things like house maintenance projects, program expansion, and the development of additional houses 2 and 3. It would be much appreciated if you could donate, and thank you for watching this documentary and taking the time to learn more about this important issue.